So unfortunately, you guessed it, I pushed the wrong button and I discontinued the original video. So this has to be part 2. I hope most of you went into the descriptive area for part 2, because whenever something like that happens, it usually is continued in part 2. So I do apologize, but I saw no point in redoing the cards. Now, okay, one of the quints is already in play, so I used the second devil from the deck because we had a second devil that was included. The top row quint is the Empress, which is interesting because when I did a reading that you saw a few days ago on how his sidekick will end up, there was a woman who appeared to be sort of like a mouthpiece. So here we have the suggestion that, somebody's, I don't know if that's him or not, but somebody in a position of power with money who is aligned with evil or corruption has a change of luck, and there's a woman who figures prominently. She may be the one who also manages this one's, she's being his mouthpiece too. She may end up being the second one's mouthpiece as well. I don't see any cards that suggest, dun, 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 or dun, 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 dun. I don't want to say the word. I don't see any cards that suggest that. Okay. However, there are cards that, kind of suggest transition or moving forward, given that the final outcome card is such a card. Success, advancement, moving forward. Now, whose perspective is this? Who is advancing and moving forward? I asked to see the course of the next week regarding Americans. And it looks like someone is charging and advancing forward. In the front and center of the core 9, we do have a card that suggests hope, flanked on either side by cards of well-being. And then the quint for that row is fortitude. I don't know, maybe who will have a surge of health. We'll feel better. We'll be on the upswing, have a little bit more vitality. I'm still not sure who the star is for. I didn't do it for him. He figures prominently in the course of this week, as we would figure he would, because, I asked what was, in store for the United States in the course of this week, or what we should look forward to or consider, right? So I'm thinking this is for the United States, not necessarily for him. Maybe it's a message for us to hang in there. I don't know. There will be advancement. There will be a change of luck for somebody. There will be a feminine voice, voice box. And then the last row, we have another card of the suit of coins, beginning, fresh blood, new blood, a detoxification. So it looks on the surface, but perhaps more corruption. Well, or it could be corruption exiting. However, if you know who's second in command is the fresh blood, whose aim is to detoxify, who are we kidding? I think it would be more corruption. However, it's hopeful that we see this devil card exiting. He's exiting, almost like he was not successful. However, the way the government is set up, I can't begin to understand how his second in command, who should logically be the person who would take over in the event that they do Amendment 25 or in the event of right? He's worse because he was really who was really wanted for that position. I think they just had the cult leader in charge because he was easy to manipulate, because let's face it, he's dumber than a box of hammers, And but he had the cult leader status. When a cult leader exits the equation, the cult usually follows. So the new blood, especially if it was to, the fresh new blood were to detoxify, and even if we see this as the corruption exiting, this doesn't describe his second in command, because his second in command is more toxic than he is, just as much. And yet we see hope, and we see advancement in the realm of success. We see strength and fortitude. We see a female perhaps taking control of a situation regarding this guy. This is the only row where I see you know who being presented. You know whose corruption takes a turn. And then we have a woman in charge. Then we have something about health and well-being. Could be the health and well-being of the country. Doesn't necessarily have to do with him. The health and well-being of the country, front and center of the core nine. There's hope. There's vitality. Could be him having a surge of better health. Could be. But it could be something that changes for the country itself. For the better. For advancement. And then we see, beginning of new blood. I see this as like an opportunity for new blood in the context of the question. Detoxification, purification, exit the corruption that we had there. But I don't really see that happening, do you? I don't know how that is able to happen, because his second in command is worse than he is, or just as bad. So something would really have to happen, that's highly unusual for there to have him removed and to have somebody put in his place that would end up being better for the country. You see what I'm saying? So I'll leave it at this. The question was, for the United States within the next week, 2 weeks, what should we consider might be on our plate? We have hope, we have vitality, we have a change of luck for someone who is corrupt. We have a feminine position and power. She could be for the good or the bad, I don't know. Then we have fresh blood that's detoxifying or is attempting to detoxify, who could be as deceptive and corrupt as always, or could be fresh blood that we can see eliminates the corruption, right? And moving forward, advancement. So this is a very, very interesting read. Now, what's my bias? I don't know, to be honest with you, because I don't see the second in command being fresh blood that will detoxify and end corruption. I see the second in command being every bit as toxic, if not worse. He's just not as stupid. Well, maybe he is. He could just be as stupid. I don't know. But I am encouraged to see, because it was for the United States, to see hope, advancement, success, a change of someone's luck here. So I think we're all rooting for that. And we're all rooting for a fresh start of detoxification. I don't see it happening, but I think we're all rooting for that. So maybe we'll have a moment of hope. Maybe we'll have a brief moment of hope. This is just for the next week or two. So maybe for a week or two, we'll have a brief moment of hope where we feel good. It doesn't necessarily, and we advance, but that doesn't necessarily. Okay, you know what? Let me do another read after this event occurs. After this event occurs, when the dust settles from this event. And I'm going to keep the devil in. I'm going to keep all the doubles in. After the dust from this event in the next week or two settles, then what? What will be the condition? Same question. What will be the condition of the United States for us to consider? I'm only going to use 3 cards and a quint. I'll be right back. All right. So the second part of this. When the dust settles after the next week or 2 weeks, when that the events that seem to take place in the last read, once that dust settles, then what? Then what condition will the U.S. be in? Stability, balance of the emotional realm or the spiritual realm. But perhaps it'll be short-lived, I don't know, because we have some agitation. We have some unrest. It could be political unrest. It could be a new agenda. We have a little bit of a piercing through with that sword there, as is typical with the odd-numbered swords. And the Wheel of Fortune again, more change. More change. So we have 4, 5, 9, 10 is 19. That would be the Sun. Dang. How could these cards be so optimistic? I'm not, my bias is not optimistic. But Lord have mercy. I mean, I'll take it. Let's see. It'll be an optimistic outlook after the dust settles from that last read. The events of the last read. Let me go off because these cards are a lot large. I just hate to push the off button or the pause button, because that's what got us into having a second. There we go. That's what got us into having to have a part 2. So we have 4, 5, 9, and 10. Yeah, that's 19. Okay. So we have the Sun card. So we have some stability with some agitation. It could be government agitation. It could be legal issues. It could be of agenda and a change going in this direction. So we have, I mean, it could have, we could look at it a couple ways. We could look at it positive change going in the direction of unsettled government toward well-being and stability. We could look at it that way. I mean, bear in mind that we don't have to read cards left to right. You go where the action is. The one card that has action is this one. The wheel is turning this way. The wheel is turning from the Sun, right? So it could be that the Sun is changing the luck in this momentum of an unsettled or, agitated legal or government or agenda towards more stability. It could be that. I mean, these cards are so freaking positive. Or if we want to look at it this way, we can see stability maybe being short-lived because of agitation. But the wheel changes. The wheel turns this way. If the wheel, I'd feel better if the wheel was turning in this direction towards the Sun. But perhaps the optimism will be short-lived because, I'm kind of, okay, this is not what I want to see. This is not what I want to see, but I'm seeing the momentum of the optimism turning in this regard towards agitation of well-being. Ooh, let's do one more because I do like to have groups of 3 when I do readings, at least 3. Sometimes I like, sometimes I'll do a 4th or something like that. But sometimes if I don't know what to do a read on, I'll just pull a couple cards. I'm not knocking it because I didn't shuffle again. So Justice, Lady Justice, let's see. Lady Justice putting a fork in it. Lady Justice being tested to the limits. regarding a social situation. So let's see. Let's take the clues from this to see what we should do a read on. Oh, I know. Or we could just interpret them as they are. Lady Justice being tested to the limits regarding a social issue. All right, let's do a read on what that social issue might be. I'll come right back after I handle and mix the cards. All righty, so the question is, regarding those last three cards, Lady Justice, or the Supreme Court being tested to the limits regarding a social issue, which has been somewhat stable because it was an 8. Remember, I think it was an 8 of batons. So I forgot to mention that it was the 8 of batons. I'm pretty sure it was 8 of batons. So it's like Lady Justice being tested to the limits, or the Supreme Court being tested to the limits regarding a social issue which has been perhaps the status quo. We have 2 8s in that read. So what would the social situation be? Okay, another 8. Interesting. Oh, no, I'm sorry, this isn't this. It'll be the next card, but it's not. Okay, so we have 5. 5 batons, unrest of a social order. But then we have some calm. And then we have detoxification. So let's add them up. We have 5 and 8 and 14. We get 27 minus 22 is 5. So let me pull the... oh, look at that. The Pope was just the second card in, so we got lucky here. Maybe it has to do with, wow, maybe there's a real struggle for the Supreme Court regarding who's in charge. A social disruption, it's not of the highest order, it's just, it's 5, it's agitated. An agitation of the social order. So maybe it's a question regarding restoring order to who's in power. Maybe the Supreme Court will really be tested about who might take his place. Maybe it won't be the second in command. Isn't that interesting? Although I find that extremely unlikely. I'm just saying what the cards are suggesting. I'm not thinking it's true because, there's a process. And that would really, 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 really rock the boat of the process, Damn. I better sign off because these cards are the messages I'm getting today are crazy. So very interesting. What do you guys think? This is kind of crazy, right? Until next time, friends. Peace. Stay well, be kind, be brave.